Hello everybody, Bradley here, and welcome back into another Civilization 6 tutorial. This time we are talking about power. This tutorial idea was brought straight out of the YouTube comments, so if you have a tutorial idea, something you want me to get to, I can't get to them all, and I can't get to them all very quickly, but any ones that are really intriguing like this that I'd love to dive deep into and do a video for you guys, I pull them from the YouTube comments. So if you're interested in anything and you want me to review it or do a tutorial on it, you can put it down in the comments below. Also, before we start, just to remind you about a couple of things. Obviously, the like and subscribe button are there if you enjoy this video and want to click the like button, that'd be helpful. But also click that subscribe button if you like Civ 6 and want to keep getting more Civ 6 content into your feed. Channel memberships are now active as well because we are YouTube partners, so you can check those out by clicking the join button. There will be a separate video talking about those coming out sometime this week, but that is active and ready to go for you guys if that is a step you would like to take to help support the clan. And also, you can check out our Twitch stream, twitch.tv/VanBradley. Link is in the description below. We stream a few times a week. It's a good time. Doing something different than YouTube. Still playing Civ, but doing something different. I think that's it. Let's hop into the tutorial and let's talk about power. We are in the game now, and I am determined to make the most out of this Germany game that we are playing on YouTube currently, because it's so good for so many different tutorials. We've already talked about bombers. The one after this is going to be nukes, but we're stopping in between for power because there's a few people in the comment section over the last month or so that have been asking me for a power tutorial, and since I don't normally build power plants, this is the one game where I can give that to you guys, so we are going to hop in. As with most things in the game, somewhere within the game there is a hub of information. And that hub of information for power is in this lenses icon over on the left. And then you click power, and it puts up the power lens, which should give you most of the information you need. You can also keybind it. I have it keybound to the number 0, which just turns the lens on and off. Taking a look at the power lens, this isn't all the information you're going to need. There is other information we're going to talk about, but this will give you at least a brief overview about what's going on, and it's a good place to check in just to see if everything's going okay for you. The first thing, there's a helpful key here to just help you out a little bit, but the power sources are highlighted in green. So these are power plants or hydroelectric dams or whatever else is giving you power. Later in the game, there's solar panels and wind farms and all kinds of things. So whatever is sourcing the power, whatever is giving your city's power is highlighted in green like this with a green outline. So you can see we have a coal power plant here, a coal power plant here, and a coal power plant here, and they are currently supplying power to our cities. We'll talk about this little guy in a second here. Here's another coal power plant that can supply power, but currently isn't. So while it can supply power, it is not highlighted in green because this city is still getting its power from this power plant. If your cities are receiving power from a power plant or another power source, hydroelectric dams, etc., you will see that they are highlighted in green here. There's also like a big yellow lightning bolt. That's an easier way. If you turn off the lens, there's a big yellow lightning bolt here, and that'll also let you know it's powered. But if you want to turn on the lens to find that, that is all this green area here. Anything that is red is underpowered. So this city can be powered up. There are buildings here that, if powered, will give your cities boosts, which we'll talk about in a minute. But all I'm here is the opposite. It is underpowered. So it can be powered. There is a red lightning bolt here to indicate, hey, power me up. I've got things going on. I want to help. But you're not currently giving it power, so it's red. So anything that can receive power and wants to help you out has the yellow lightning bolt and is highlighted in green if you turn on the lens. Anything underpowered is highlighted in red and has a red lightning bolt. This yellow border that goes around all of your cities is called the power range. The power range extends anywhere that is in range of a power center that can power it up. So you'll notice cities like this here, like Hamburg, that are not red or green. This is a city that can't be powered yet. You'll notice because there's no red or yellow lightning bolt here. But because it's in range of this coal power plant, it still gets its borders highlighted in yellow. Now, it's important to know that the range is based on your city center building. These power plants here have a range of 6. So Hamburg is within 6 tiles of this, but can't be powered. So it's not highlighting in green or red, but its whole border is lighting up with yellow, or the yellow will go around the border. Let's say these cities weren't powered, the yellow would curve around here to indicate that the whole city can be powered. And so just because some of these tiles, like this one here, maybe this one here is a better example, are way more than 6 tiles away from a power plant, it's because their city centers are close enough that it will extend the power range to them. You'll notice cities like this over here that can't be powered but are also out of range. Down here in Ulm, you have a city that can be powered but is out of range, so it's highlighting in red. But over here, none of these are highlighting red or green, just indicating that they can't be powered, kind of like Hamburg right here, and they're out of range. So once they can be powered, they will highlight like this because there is no power source available to them. The only exception up here is we have built a hydroelectric dam. The reason why this power source doesn't put a power range around these cities is because this power source is only for this city. So only Adwatica gets this power source, and so it's not going to put a range around these cities. The reason why this city also isn't turning green to indicate it's fully powered is because even though there's a yellow lightning bolt here, there's no buildings to power up yet. So the hydroelectric dam will give all the indications of a powered city, yet even though there isn't anything to power up here, it's not highlighting it green. As mentioned earlier, the range of these power plants is 6 tiles, so it's good to kind of figure out here which cities are getting their power sources from where. This coal power plant was put down before this one. So this power source is currently powering Magdeburg instead of this one here that's in Magdeburg, and the reason for that is this power source was down and was powering Magdeburg before this one was down here. So even though this is an eligible power source, and if this was 1 tile closer, would start to power Cordoron, because this is not being used to power any of the cities, it's not highlighting in green with the outline, but it is still counting towards the range over here because it could power a city if it needed to. It just doesn't need to because Magdeburg is already being powered by this power plant up here. The main ways you are going to power your cities early on in the game are through power plants. There are coal, oil, and nuclear power plants, and they kind of come in order. You're going to start with coal because it comes earlier, then move to oil, then move to nuclear if you would like. If you go and search these power plants in the Civilopedia, which I recommend you do, go to the wiki, look up power, go to the Civilopedia, search around for a bit. This tutorial is not going to cover everything because I'm definitely going to miss something. So there's a lot of information here, and this is the place I get most of my information from. So if you ever say like, whoa, this VB guy's so smart, how did he know that? I just looked it up in the Civilopedia. So we have a coal power plant here. Automatically converts any amount of coal into power for cities within 6 tiles that need it each turn at the rate of 1 coal equals 4 power, and this gives heavy CO2 into the atmosphere. So that's good to know. 1 coal equals 4 power. We'll talk about how much power you need for your cities, and heavy CO2 in the atmosphere, so very bad for the environment. Lots of sinking tiles here. If we move on to the oil power plant here, automatically converts any amount of oil, so it'll just take whatever you got and convert it into power as long as it is needed, into power for cities within 6 tiles, so still 6 tiles. 1 oil equals 4 power, so that is the same here. Moderate CO2 into the atmosphere, a little better for the planet. Its production bonus extends to all city centers within 6 tiles that do not already have a bonus from a power plant building. So that's new. That's another bonus for an oil power plant. And then you have the nuclear power plant. This one is used least for me because by the time I have uranium, I kind of just want to build nukes or giant death robots or something. Uranium into power. 1 uranium equals 16 power. Holy smokes, we are powered up now. Minuscule CO2 into the atmosphere, way better for the environment. Once built as a nuclear power plant ages, there is an increased chance for a nuclear accident to occur. Its production and science bonus is extended to all city centers within 6 tiles that do not already have a bonus. If you want to know what these bonuses are for the oil and nuclear power plant, they're just these. +4 production, +3 science for this one. For coal, it's probably +3 production or whatever it is. And so there you have the 3 different power plants, and these can power as many cities that are within 6 tiles. If you've built a power plant and you would like to change later and you started with coal but now you have oil, you can go into your production here and you can go, convert to oil power, and once that's complete, it'll just convert from taking coal out of your stores to power your cities to taking oil or to taking uranium, whatever you want to pick. Instead of counting in this power lens exactly what's being used where, you'll see it says 3 coals being used for 10 power, yada yada. You can just go up here to your stores, your stocks of resources. If I go to coal, it says we are gaining 16 per turn, and we are consuming 9 per turn for power. If you go into your city's main kind of city details here, this is behind my head. I do apologize. There's not really a great place for me to put my head, but just behind my head here, toggle city details, you'll see it on the left-hand side. It'll tell you everything you need to know about power. So you get lots of information, citizens, amenities. We're sucking at amenities. I can't wait for you guys to watch the last part of this game. It's wild. But let's go to the power lens here. 5 usable power out of 5 required, and the status is powered. We already knew that, but that's great. It's telling us it's using 5 power, and we know that 1 coal equals 4 power, so it's taking 1.2 coal per turn to power this bad boy up. All right, buildings or projects which require power are fully effective. Usable power, Aachen, powered Frankfurt. So that's good to know. We are getting it from Aachen, and it's powering Frankfurt, so that's perfect. It's the Aachen power plant that's powering Frankfurt here. The factory has its 2 power, which makes up 2 of the 5, and the broadcast center has 3 power, which makes up 3 of the 5. So you can do that with each of your cities if you need to know specifically what the power situation in each city is. This one here, 5 of 5 usable, getting it from itself. Factory, broadcast center, power plant output. So if you have a power plant in this city, it'll tell you it's giving 5 to Aachen here. It's giving 5 to Frankfurt there. And that equals the 10 that you see right here for the 3 coal. Now, obviously, this is rounding up as well. We know that 1 coal equals 4 power, so 3 coal can give up to 12 power, but it can't give 9 because that's just not how things work. So it's going to give 10 and then 11 and then 12, and then once it hits 13, it'll take a 4th coal, etc. Now we're getting to the part of the game where you're probably, or the part of the tutorial where you're wondering like, hey, thanks for that big explanation. Why would I even want to do this? And why is it important? Well, powering your cities is important for some types of games. In games where you want to power up, I'll specify the games I don't usually power up, but in most science games and in most domination games, I fully power up if it's at all possible. Okay, so powering up will improve certain types of buildings. If you want to know each and every type of building that could require power or each project, there are some projects at the end of the game. One of the laser station projects to increase your light years per turn for the exoplanet expedition requires power. But buildings like the research lab, the broadcast center, factories will give you a bonus for power. So if we go to this research lab here, I'm going to show you how to search it in the wiki too, just so you are aware. It says +9 science for the research lab. So put a research lab down in any old city and it'll give you 9 science. +5 science additionally when powered. So this campus or this research lab in this city is giving me an additional 5 science because it's powered. All right, and then Pingala is taking that extra 5 science and giving me a 15% boost on top of that, yada yada, etc., etc. So you can see how it kind of snowballs, but that is the extra boost. You notice how the citizen slot is not a powered thing, the great scientist spot point per turn is not a powered thing, so that it's only the 5 science we're getting here for powering up the research lab. And it takes whatever, how much power did it take? It takes 3 power for this. Oh, so this is broadcast center here. The research lab will take 3 power as well. So once we build this research lab, the power will add. So it'll be 2 + 3 and then another +3 here. And it'll have to burn more coal here, which will take more coal from up here. And you can see how the cycle kind of works. If we take a look at some of the other buildings, a broadcast center definitely gives you a boost for power. It'll be +4 culture additionally when powered. Fantastic stuff. +2 culture, +4 when powered. So it, like, what is it? Triples its output here from 2 to 6 if you power it up. So that's awesome. I want to say a stock exchange as well. Powered up. Yeah, 4 gold +7. Additionally when powered, so more than double as well. So you can see that powering up these buildings in some kinds of games is very, very important to increase your output without having to build more cities or build more districts. Now you might be wondering, well, Brad, why, after you've told me all these amazing things about power, would I not want to power my buildings in each and every game? The game that comes up most often and the game where I power up the least and sometimes don't even build any industrial zones is a culture game. The main reason is in a culture game is that putting down a bunch of industrial zones is very, very difficult to do. Industrial zones cost production. This is the bit of a thing with industrial zones. Industrial zones cost production. Nothing else costs its own yield. When you build a commercial hub, it costs production to make, but it gives you gold. When you build a campus, it costs production to make, but it gives you science. When you're building an industrial zone, we go to industrial zones here, it costs production to make. So the base cost is 54 production and it goes up, but it also gives you production. So let's say this costs 54 production and it's a +5 industrial zone, which is amazing, right? It takes 10 turns to pay itself off. And then you extrapolate that, well, then you got to do the workshop, and that's got to pay itself off in production. And then you got to do the factory, and that's got to pay itself off in production. So you can only really build a lot of industrial zones in games that are going very long, because it takes time to give you the right payout before it's giving you more production than you would have had you just not built it at all. So it's a little bit weird to think about industrial zones in that way, but framing them that way is important. So the longer your game is going, right? Let's say you're playing on a really big map, so it's going to take longer to win. You had to stumble out of the gate, so the game is going to take a little longer. The more turns you will have to have all your industrial zones pay off. So that's kind of one reason why building a lot of industrial zones can actually be inefficient, even though it feels like you're getting a lot of production, because it has to pay back the production cost it took to make it. Imagine paying 54 production to get +2 per turn. Now you're at 25 turns before it pays itself off, and you get the point that I'm trying to make, I'm sure. The next reason is just appeal-based. In a culture game, I need as many tiles in my empire to have high appeal. Industrial zones give negative appeal to the tiles around it. Now, because this is a giant wonder right here, the appeal doesn't really matter. I'm still getting great appeal here, but this industrial zone is actually making all these tiles around it have less appeal. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm already at, like, what is that, 30 tiles? Ish that are getting less appeal because of industrial zones. And in a culture game where every tile's appeal matters and every little bit of appeal you can squeeze out of your empire matters, having industrial zones everywhere to take appeal away from tiles just isn't something I really want to do. But in science games and in domination games, they can usually be a little bit longer. You can usually have time for the industrial zones to pay themselves back, and you don't give two flying farts about the appeal of your empire. It does not matter at all, and so you can just spam them out like we did in this game. Helps specifically with Germany, because putting down the Hansas in Germany's case, but the industrial zones doesn't take as much. I've loaded up into the end of this game here. Not quite the end. I don't want to spoil it, because this video is coming out before the last episode of this gameplay, so I don't want to spoil anything, but I do want to show you what late game power looks like. So if we take a look at our power right here, you can see now everything is fully powered, a lot more bold, a lot more power sources that we're talking about here. And this is in the late game, how you're going to get your power. So if we take a look at Frankfurt, the city we looked at, last time it was just a broadcast center that was taking power and we were building a research lab. If we go here now, you can see that 8 out of 8 usable power. There's a factory, a research lab, and a broadcast center that are now taking power. And you can see there's a lot more power sources now. It's still getting some power from Aachen. So that's great, but you can see that this power plant is actually giving less power, and that's because we have unlocked wind and solar power, and I guess another source here. What that means is later in the game, you can unlock different ways of getting power that are much better for the environment. I am talking about these bad boys right here. These are called solar farms. 1 gold, 1 production, and provides +2 power per turn. They have to go on flatland tiles and cannot be built on snow, says it right there. And then later you have, those are offshore wind farms. Where are the regular old fancy pants wind farms? Right down here, we have wind farms here. 2 gold, 1 production, provides 2 power per turn, must be built on hills terrain. So, as you put these down, the cities that can take them, right, will automatically take the power. So you don't need to move. When you go from coal to oil or oil to nuclear in a power plant, you actually have to physically take production to make the switch. As you put down these wind farms and these solar farms, it'll automatically start taking the power from them first, and then whatever it needs left, it'll take out of the power plants. So I haven't touched a single thing. I've just put down a couple of different power sources here, and now all of a sudden, this power plant has to do a little bit less work. This one, where is this 3 coming from? I want to know where this 3 is coming from here. Oh, I have +3 power for my government as well. So later in the game, later in the game as well, there is a government here. Not democracy, but synthetic technocracy that adds 3 power to all your cities. So that is why these power plants are working a little less hard. But if we take a look over here, we go to our power lens, All of these are affecting this city here, and so we are good to go. It's not taking anything from a coal power plant or whatever. And so that is how late game power works. You have a lot more eco-friendly ways to power up your cities, but don't worry about having to switch anything around. As you build these tiles, these wind farms and solar farms on your tiles in your empire, your cities will automatically start taking power from them. As with anything, you can always find more info in the Civilopedia, so you just click this little search function here, the little question mark at the top, type in wind farm, type in solar farm, whatever you got to do. Type in synthetic technocracy. Synthetic technocracy. There's some power information. What if I just put power in here? What does it tell me? Power. Oh, it tells you so much. I don't want to read all this, but it does tell you a lot. So all that information is there. In the Governor's Magnus Industrialist is not something I go often or really ever go, but it's there for you if you want to experiment with it. I'd love nothing more, honest to God, for you guys to go Magnus Industrialist in your next game and come back and tell me how great it is, so I don't need to try it myself and you guys can give it a go. But it increases the power provided by each resource of the coal power plant, oil, and nuclear power plant by 1, right? So for oil and coal, that's great because it goes 1 coal equals 4 to 1 coal equals 5. For nuclear, though, it's like 1 equals 16 to 1 equals 17. Not as big of a deal. And the production by 2. So it does increase the production a little bit as well. So just be on the lookout for that, because that also has an effect on power. And I think that's going to do it for our power tutorial. It's not a very complicated thing to know about once you get into it. The main thing you want to know is really when to use power and when to not, because it can be really deceiving. You see all these industrial zones and they're going to give you lots of production. You see all these, research labs are going to be an extra 5 science, and I have 3 research labs. It's going to be an extra 15 science. That's going to be great. But just don't be sucked into it every game. There are some games where it'll be more efficient, even though it doesn't seem so, instead of building 18 power plants, because one power plant cannot power a lot of cities unless you have tons of resources. And even then, how many cities do you have within 6 tiles? You usually have to build 2, 3, 4 industrial zones and get that many power plants. So just be careful that that amount of production and that amount of effort sometimes isn't worth it. Not to mention you'll be polluting the planet. So if you have a lot of coastal tiles, you can see we directly contributed to the loss of 2 of our tiles here. We had a mausoleum, so it's okay. That's not why we did it. But just be careful, right? Because it's really deceiving. It's like a honeypot, right? It looks really cool, but then you get there, it's like, maybe not. So just be careful. In science games, in domination games, you're usually really, really safe to fully power up. In culture games, be a little more careful. As you play domination games as well, you might be taking over lots of power plants, and that's all great and good. But this is going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This tutorial idea came straight out of the comments. So if you would like your idea to be heard, put it in the comments and I'll hopefully get to it eventually. You can hit the like button, you can hit the subscribe button, and that would be awesome as well. Let me know again what you thought in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.